What we have today is Len Nelms with Fair Tax Solutions. So, Len, welcome to the office.
Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate you inviting me.
So what we'd like to start with is just kind of learn a little bit about, what is Fair Tax Solutions? What do you guys, how did it get started? Kind of what's your background?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we do. Fair Tax Solutions helps troubled taxpayers get out of the mess that they've created for themselves with the IRS or Georgia Department of Revenue or any state revenue department. And I say the mess that they've gotten themselves in. It's not always a mess they've gotten themselves in. Sometimes it's the IRS being the IRS, which is they're the most brutal collection agency in the world.
Sure.
Really. And so they do what they want to. And taxpayers who take them on without representation are making a big mistake because they'll do what they want to. They don't have to tell you what the rules are. And you better have somebody in your corner that helps and knows what the rules are and can help you with that. So that's what we do.
Okay.
Clients come to us. They owe the IRS. They can't pay the IRS. They want to settle, offering compromise. They want to settle for less. They want help dealing with their tax problem, and we fix the past. And we also fix the future so that we get them on the right path going forward as well. Okay. So we got started really about 6 years ago. I joined my dad in his tax prep business. Actually, many years ago, I was actually doing it part-time. I went through a little midlife career change. I was in sales for 20 plus years.
Okay. And
my dad asked me to help when I would, in the evenings during tax season, inputting W-2s. Well, that sounds real exciting, doesn't it? But I did it because he was paying me. I got in there, and there's something wrong with me because I actually liked it.
Okay,
and,
sure.
And then the recession hit in 2009. My sales job got laid off, and so I went in full-time tax prep. I went back to school, Kennesaw State, took all my accounting classes, and earned my CPA license back in 2014. So,
okay. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Oh, well, thank you.
I mean, not a lot of people are, have the, the wherewithal to kind of have already kind of gone down one path and go, you know what, I found this other thing that I think I like more, and I'm just going to jump in with both feet and really commit myself to it. So that's really cool.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of people that are wondering even right now, what are they going to do next? I mean, the COVID situation has said put people out of business or put them in a bad spot.
Sure.
What am I going to do? Well, I took accounting 101 when I was 48 years old. So,
right.
So it's possible to do it and to create a different path for yourself. And that's what I did. My dad was a great help. He's been an accountant all his life. So
he was a career all-time accountant. So I'm sure you'd been exposed to it, and I'm sure you had an aptitude for it. So
I guess so.
Were you always a numbers guy and just?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was. But math was my favorite subject in school.
Sure.
Big nerd. But I enjoyed it. What I really found it to be, though, wasn't so much the math, it's the problem solving. And that's what we do at Fair Tax Solutions. We solve problems. We even did that in the tax prep piece, but in the tax resolution piece, that's exactly what we're doing. We're coming in, we're taking a client and walking through various possibilities to get their problem solved so that they can move on with their lives and not have this burden hanging over them for this dark cloud for the rest of their lives.
Well, I've known people that I've never, knock on wood, I've never had any, run-ins with the IRS, so to speak, but I've known people who have, and it can be a very stressful thing, and like you said, it's like a cloud over you. It's constantly on your mind, and that stress affects you.
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, I've had clients that have come to me and literally sat in my office, and you can see the burden lift off their shoulders just because they said, we want to hire you.
Yeah.
And that's it. They just needed somebody to talk to take that burden from. Most of the time, I hadn't done anything but just the transfer of the burden to somebody, a representative who cares and is going to work to help them, it's amazing. It's an amazing transformation.
So what are some examples of ways that someone can have run afoul of the IRS or fallen within their gaze, so to speak? What are some of those like specific instances that where someone would say, hey, I need help with this? Obviously there's, hey, I owe a lot of money in back taxes, but I'm being audited. I mean, do you guys do audit review?
We do. That is not really, we do some of that. That's not the main impetus or the main creator of business for us. One of the things that we're encountering right now because of COVID, one of the things that they allowed small businesses to do during COVID was to postpone paying their payroll taxes. So if they have employees, they could have made the option, we're not going to send the employer portion to the Social Security Administration of payroll taxes. I just recently talked to another client who went out of business. I mean, he was in the type of business that COVID directly impacted, and he owes 3 or 4 quarters worth of payroll taxes. Business is out of business. And so when that happens,
they still want their check, though.
They still want their money. And so guess who they're going to go after? They're going to go after the owner. They're going to go after the bookkeeper. They're going to go after anybody that they can say, you're responsible for paying those payroll taxes, and you haven't done it. So we're going to assess the owner, bookkeeper, the banker, anybody that literally that they can they feel like they can get money from. And so what we do is try to protect that person's assets. The business is gone. The business has no assets and it has no income. And so now they're coming after them personally, and we need to protect that person, try to keep them from assessing the penalty against them personally. But even if they do, we can manage that piece and protect them so that they don't have to cash in their 401k or their IRA or sell
mortgage their house,
the house or anything like that. We don't want that to happen.
So the IRS will negotiate with you.
They will.
If you know how.
If you know how and if you know the rules.
Call.
Yeah, that's right. So the IRS has a group of people that, if you know a revenue officer, please don't be offended. They're tough. Right. They're the most aggressive collection people within the IRS, and they can basically do whatever they want to. Sure. And they do. Even when it's borderline sketchy on whether or not it's within the rules. And so if you don't know that, you're going to assume that they're telling you the truth all the time, that they in fact can do whatever they want to. And if I'm representing you, then we're going to hold them accountable and make them back off. And if need be, we'll just take it out of their hands and send it to the appeals department, where the revenue officer can't do their damage any longer. So, but the average taxpayer doesn't know that, so having someone like us in their corner really makes a difference. So
yeah, man, it's like the hits keep coming with COVID. You think you hear all these things on the news, and it's like all these implications that people would never even have dreamt of. Right. And then you find out, and it can mess up your taxes too.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, with the PPP loans and the stimulus checks they've been sending, I mean, there's a lot of people have questions about how does that stuff get reported? Is it taxable? Right. Is it not? Is it, how does it work? And so this is going to be an interesting tax season, I'm sure.
It is. Last year was the tax season from where.
Right.
This one is shaping up to be about the same. But I will answer some questions so that you don't call me with these questions.
Okay.
The PPP loan is not taxable. You can deduct all the expenses, and the stimulus check is not taxable. I don't know where it is, but it's not taxable.
Right.
So
if you got one, you get to keep it.
If you got one,
if you didn't get one, don't call me.
That's right. But you can recover, just so you'll know, you can recover any stimulus check that you didn't get when you file a tax return. So they do allow for that.
Interesting.
So if you didn't get the $600 yet, don't worry. It's available as soon as you file a tax return.
Sure.
So interesting.
Okay. Well, good. Very good. So how what else do you think is coming this year? So obviously with all of those challenges that presents, that's going to be something that people are going to continue to probably be calling you about, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What else is coming down the road?
Well, so if you recall, you may not recall since you're not in the industry, but one of the things when COVID hit is the IRS put on the brakes. Okay. And they said, okay, we understand that America is hurting and people are losing their jobs or their income is going down, whatever the situation might be. And so if there was a tax problem, they said, we're not going to collect. We're not going to file liens. We're not going to levy bank accounts. We're not going to do that. And they actually stopped March, April timeframe.
Yeah, foreclosures, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Aggressive collections. They did some reasonable stuff, but they didn't really just come after folks all the way until the end of December. Mm-hmm. Well,
has the protective gear been taken off?
It has. The brakes are off and the accelerator is all the way down on the floor. And they're really coming. I mean, I get copies of letters from my clients where I'm power of attorney. Okay, they send a copy to the client, copy to me. And I go to the mailbox and the stack is a foot deep of letters coming from the IRS to the taxpayer saying, we are ramping up our collection effort and you need to pay us. And if you're not paying us, we're going to be pretty aggressive about it. If you owe a significant amount of money, typically it's over $100,000 or even $250,000, a revenue officer is assigned. Payroll taxes, a revenue officer is automatically assigned. If your account is in a revenue officer's hands, you need help. Even if it's not in a revenue officer's hands, you still need help because you don't know what's available to you. Everybody wants to settle for less than what they owe. And you know what? It's possible. I mean, we've settled $50,000 in debt for $2,500. We've settled $75,000 for $1,700. It's possible, but you got to qualify. They're not a business. Here's what I get. Here's a question I get a lot. I've got $10,000 in the bank. I know I owe them $60,000, but can I just write them a check for $10,000? Well, the IRS is not a business.
You can, but that's a down payment.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
That's right.
You certainly can write them that check.
60 minus 10 is 50,
yeah,
and so you owe another 50,000 plus interest and penalties. Mm-hmm. But they're not a business. If you owed me $60,000 and you disappeared for 3 or 4 years, and then you came back and said, "Hey, Len, I can write you a check right now for $10,000 to settle everything I owe you," I'll take it because I ain't gotten anything from you for the last.
Better than nothing.
That's right, better than nothing. But the IRS says, no, we think you can pay us all $60,000, and so we're not going to settle for less.
They can wait.
Yeah, they absolutely can wait. They got a 10-year window to collect the taxes that you owe.
Interesting.
And as the window gets closer to the end, they get more aggressive.
So what happens at the end of that time?
Well, if you're lucky enough to get to the end of the statute of limitations, that 10-year period, and you still owe, that debt actually goes away.
Now, if they've got liens on things, that stuff can survive that, right?
Typically, no. If the debt goes away, then the liens go away.
Interesting.
But every year has.
But you would never advocate for someone to try to make it that.
If they're in the last year, I would actually.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, if they're close, I would say ride it out and wait and see if you hear from anybody because it might go away. But the problem typically is not only do they owe from 7 years ago, they owe from 6, 5, 4, and 3 years ago, and each one of those
rolling
different statute of limitations.
Yeah,
that's right. So it just
so you
snowballs.
might get the 10 years ago debt to fall off, but the 9 and the 8, the 7, 6, all the other years, because if you did it wrong one year, chances are you probably did it wrong other years
Very
too.
common. Yeah, absolutely. It's rarely just 1 year type thing, so it can be. It can be tough.
Well, it's a valuable service.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely I mean, it's something that people need. Yeah. And it's like if you were going to go, let's say you got sued for something, you wouldn't show up to court without a lawyer.
That's exactly right.
You wouldn't just show up and be like, "Hey, judge, I'm here, and here's what I think about these charges."
Right.
They would laugh at you and say, go away and come back when you've got someone that speaks our language.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And
same
most
thing.
people wouldn't go through a divorce maybe without an attorney. I mean, you may not ever go to a court, but you want somebody representing your interest because you've got an opponent. And that's what the IRS is. You've got an opponent who is going to do everything they can to get as much out of you as possible.
Sure.
You better have somebody in your corner because you don't know what they can and can't do.
Sure.
So,
Wow.
yeah, I love it. It's problem solving. It's really helping folks get beyond the mistakes they may have made in the past and move forward with a clean slate. I mean, a great analogy is what bankruptcy does. I mean, bankruptcy, the whole purpose is to get out of the mess that I've created, because it may be of my own making, maybe not, who knows. But at least I've got a clean slate and I can move forward and move on with my life, frankly.
Rebuild.
And so that's what we do related to taxes. So
That's fantastic. So what is that first? So like I guess there's like a consultation. That if someone were to to reach out to you and say, hey, I've got this stack of papers that's a foot and a half thick,
right?
Or just a letter, and hey, I want to come in and kind of review. I mean, you guys do that sort of thing. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's kind of how you get started.
That is how we get started. We do work remotely some, and really it's actually moved more remotely with COVID and what have you. But we do have clients that come into the office as well. But the initial consultation is going to figure out what the current status is, how much you owe, what has happened with the IRS to this point, and then whether or not we can determine what the best solution is. There's 3 or 4 or 5 different possible solutions that we can pursue. A lot of that is going to depend on the taxpayer's financial condition. So a lot of times we'll spend 15 or 20 minutes in that first consultation talking about your financials. What are your assets? Do you have equity in any of these assets? Because that's a critical element to determine whether or not the IRS is going to cooperate with you. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to focus on what your income is. How much you're bringing home, what are your bills, and what's left over at the end of the month, if anything. And that's going to have an impact on what you can settle for, particularly if they want an offer in compromise, which is settling for less. Equity and assets, if you have equity and assets over what you owe, forget it. You don't qualify.
Right.
But if you don't have equity and assets and the income portion is low, that's what's left over at the end of the month. If that is low, then that will help you qualify for paying less than what you owe. And but even if that doesn't work, if for some reason the offer in compromise is rejected, we handle it all the way through appeals, and we can get on an installment agreement to pay less than what would full pay the debt. And at the end of 10 years, it just goes away. And it might not be 10 years because some of the debt's already 5 or 6 years old, right? So that's how that works.
That's great. So tell the people watching how can they find you? Tell us about your your website. What are your details?
Okay. Well, the name of our company, Fair Tax Solutions, and it's fairtaxsolutions.com. Pretty simple. And it's spelled just like it sounds. And we're located in Marietta. We're on Canton Road in Marietta, but we handle local problems. We handle farther out in the state problems. We handle other state issues. Our phone number is 470-305-1233. Okay. I can be reached if you want to email me, Len at fairtaxsolutions.com. Len is Len at fairtaxsolutions.com. And if you go to our website, there's a place where you can go in and request a consultation. And if you fill that out, send us your information. We'll schedule a consultation for you and figure out what we can do to help.
That's super. All right, and you can do other states.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not just the state of Georgia. It's nationwide.
It is. It's nationwide because the IRS, federal tax is federal tax. Now, if you have a problem with the Alabama Department of Revenue or the Florida Department of Revenue, we can handle that as well. But most people have more issues with the IRS than they do with the state. So,
Sure.
yeah. So,
Well, that's great. Well, we really appreciate you coming in and sitting down with us today.
thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. Well, have a great day.
You. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Oh, that was fun.
Great.
Thank you very much.